Hey everybody, Zee Garcia here, and today I'm taking a look at the latest core box in the Zombicide line of games. This is White Death. This is part of the fantasy line, which includes Blague, includes Green Horde, and now White Death. And of course, all the expansions for those games there. This one is going to give you that same feel in many ways as Blague did, one of the better liked games in the Zombicide line. But it's going to modernize a few things. It's going to change a few things, and it certainly gives you a new setting. This sort of pseudo-Mongolian, Far East idea with some characters being anthropomorphic animals as seen here on the cover. Speaking of what we see on the cover, I am going to be covering just what comes in this core box. So let's go ahead, go to the table. I'm going to give you an overview of how this game works. I'm mostly talking about differences from other Zombicide games here, but I'll briefly talk about how this game works. I'm not going to do a rules explanation here. For one thing, you already maybe know how to play Zombicide, and it would be too much to go into it. So let me show you. We'll come on back. I'll tell you my thoughts on this one. In this overview, I'm going to be focusing mainly on what's the same and what's different in this Zombicide versus the other ones that have come before it. So this one falls into the fantasy line of Zombicides like Blague, Green Horde. This one is going to have some of those same ideas and is compatible with those games to a certain degree. It is going to have some rules that have changed, and in fact, in the rulebook you can find here a box that is going to explain to you some of the differences compared to those games. Many of them are really just sort of cleaning up some of the language, like changing from experience points to adrenaline points, things like that. But some of them do matter, things like there are no longer doors. And so none of the places need to be opened anymore. Everything is open. They will never be spawning inside of buildings now. This one does use the old system for the noise, where everything you do that creates noise places one of these, as opposed to some of the later systems that had a single noise token that would move around to the last place that was noisy, so be aware of that. This one also brings back something that we saw before in Zombicide Invader, or at least a variation of that, which is these things right here that we're placing on the board. In this game they're called Corruption, and they are spread by necromancers who themselves don't move, but instead spread corruption, and the spawn zone where they came from will move instead of they themselves. If these corruption trails here ever make it back to this location, then we lose the game. This was similar to Zombicide Invader, and there it was called Mold, but it was a similar idea. And so that is something to watch out for. Anything that has this on it simply loses all of its characteristics, that space, and just becomes a street space. This is especially important because there are ramparts in this game in many of the scenarios that are going to change the way players and characters, basically all of the actors here, will interact with that. A zombie will not be able to climb up the rampart side here, but they can, if they are on top of it, they can just fall down, very much hurt themselves, but then they get back up because they're undead and they just keep walking, all right? So they can go down, just not up. And we ourselves will be able to take these steps here, so can they. But then there's also these rope ladders that can be picked up from various places on the board, carried, and then deployed so that we can move up those rope ladders and move back down, but the zombies will not be able to interact with those. So that is a new concept that you will see here. There's also these cauldrons. These cauldrons can be moved, can be shoved around on the ramparts, and then you can expend a great effort to spill them over the edge of the rampart into the area below, and it will take care of everything down there. Every unit will be eliminated. Some scenarios will begin with some of these in specific places, might require you to carry them and move them where they need to be. It's basically a new puzzle piece for you to possibly play with or engage with. And then on top of that, the biggest change, I think, would be the guards. There are now these figures that are neither zombies nor us, the players. They are guards. They will be helping the players. and they are going to be activated by us, by the players taking actions to interact with those guards. There's a reminder card here that will be set aside and tells you what those guards can do. We can spend an action basically to move them, to do a melee action with them, or to do a ranged action with them. On the other side, it gives you their stats for melee and ranged. And then every character in this game now has, at the blue level, both an ability for themselves and an ability for the guards. If you are playing this game combined with, say, Black Plague or Green Horde, the characters obviously will not have that pre-printed on them. So the game gives you a stack of these cards that you will randomize and give one to every character so that they do have a guard ability at level 1, which is a nice touch and a little bit of backwards compatibility there. The guards in the game do count as survivors, by the way, so the zombies will target them, though losing these guards will not trigger the end of the game, but you will not have access to them, obviously. So those are the broad strokes. Everything else you probably know from other Zombicide games. If you do not, then the general idea here being that we pick a scenario. You are going to pick one of these. You're going to set that up. You're going to read what it is you need to be doing in that scenario. Then the players are going to take turns going through the player phase here, taking actions to move, to search for goodies, drawing cards from this deck here, to attack the zombies, that sort of thing, or any other concept they're trying to achieve. Get to a specific place, reveal a token, gain the thing. Sometimes these are red on both sides. Sometimes on the other side will be a blue or green marking, which might have a special meaning in that scenario. With that done and all the players having taken their actions, then we go to the zombies phase where they will activate and try to attack us or move closer to attack us. And then new ones will spawn in specific spawn points that are numbered around the board, with that being 1, 2, and 3. And while there's a necromancer, also that necromancer's spawn point. Once we get to the end phase there, we will clean up the noise tokens, and we will get ready for the next one. There's also a targeting priority here, which has changed from the earlier days of Zombicide to include the brutes at the top, meaning they block weaker zombies, and this only matters when you are shooting into that space, not in melee combat. So that is the general idea, and that's the general flow of the game. A lot of new concepts, a bit of a tower defense feel, and, like I said, bringing back some concepts from previous editions of the game, like Zombicide Invader. Let's go ahead and go back up top. So first of all, I will say that I think as far as the fantasy line of Zombicides, I do think that this one is my favorite. But that's maybe not saying as much as you think, because Black Plague is not my favorite. And I know it is a lot of people's favorites. Zombicide, sort of entry point. I like Black Plague, but I think it is a little slow. I think it is a little, it shows its age, certainly, many of the aspects in the game. So if I was going to play any of the fantasy ones, it would be this one. I like this one the best. And there's a few reasons for that, which I'll talk about, but, be aware of that. I do think it's solid and has improved upon the previous ones in its own range, if you would. So here are the things I do like about it very much. So I like the simplification that they've tackled here. They've done away with doors. They've done away with the extra activation of a type of mini if they run out, and instead you just get the activation of the abomination. They've simplified some stuff. That's not to say there's not a lot of little rules. We'll come back to that. There are a lot of little rules, but I like the simplifications they've put in place. I do enjoy. I like the guards. That is a very cool system. Every scenario now has these guards that sometimes you need to protect, but usually you can use them as part of your forces, and it very much lends the game more of a feeling of you being sieged and defending against something, and it really gives this one, again, that sort of pseudo-Mongolian invasion feel comes through, and the guards do some of the heavy lifting for that. It is great to be able to, sometimes you're not sure what to do with that third action, and you're like, well, I'll do it with the guards, and everybody has a little bit of something they do special with the guards. You can also throw them at the enemies, and if they die, that's okay, except, again, for a specific scenario or two. So I really enjoy that. It makes the whole thing a little more puzzly, and that's another big positive for me, is that with the inclusion here of the ramparts, of the cauldrons, of the guards, this one feels very puzzly. You do need to stop and think about how you want to tackle various things. Put together a plan and follow through with that plan. Certainly dealing with the luck along the way, but you need to see where all your playing pieces are and how they're going to come together and cooperate, moving some of them, literally the guards. So I really enjoy the puzzly nature of the whole thing. Now, a couple of things I did not like as much. I thought the theme, while it's a cool setting, I think thematically it's a little weak, especially, again, I'm considering only the core box. There's two characters that are anthropomorphic, and it does not make a whole lot of sense as to why one of the characters that is fighting alongside you is a tiger person, and one is a fox person. I'm like, okay, what is happening? Not sure. They, again, unfortunately, in the core box, give you a single abomination and a single evil guy. What's his name? The guy who puts out the corruption. What is his name? That fella. He is a necromancer. There it is. So they give you a single abomination and a single necromancer. And I feel like we're past the point of getting a single one of each of those in the core box. Especially when the system is now built so that when you pull a card that says abomination, you go to a secondary deck of abomination cards, shuffle that, and you see which one you get. Well, there's only one in the core box. It always feels a little bit like a slap in the face if you only have the core box that they couldn't include, even one more. So that feels kind of bad. There's also a lot of necromancer activations in that deck. And if you get one early, it makes the game feel pretty swingy, especially considering the one necromancer that's included sits back and pushes that corruption out, and it's sometimes incredibly tough to get to him, to take him out. That corruption is going to spread a lot of walkers. It can be tough. If you draw one early, I actually find it worse if you get an early necromancer than if you get an early abomination, and I feel like it used to be the opposite. That necromancer is nasty. He is very, very nasty. As far as the lots of little rules, like I said, this one does have a lot of little rules you need to contend with. You have to contend with the ramparts and all the rules that go with that. The stairs up to the ramparts and the rope stairs and how that works, the differences there. The corruption and the way it spreads and the fact that it turns any location that it arrives at into a street zone. So it can actually cut the ramparts in half. And now you have to climb. You can jump down but not back up on this. So it's like, wait, so it literally like melted its way through the wall? Thematically, yes. There is the ruins, which are buildings for line of sight rules, but not for searching. There's a lot of little stuff, is my point. A lot of those little things I like. The cauldrons are great. The guards are great. I like the new pole arms, where you can melee attack one space out of where the location would normally be. Fantastic. I like all the vault weapons. That's cool. And I like that you get them now when you take out abominations and necromancers. Great. But there are a lot of them. And again, the core box feels like it could have had more of the units to give you more variety, a little bit. So yeah, there's good and bad here. I think if you are a big fan of the fantasy line, this is a good one. It introduces things from some of the other lines. The corruption is definitely similar to the mold from Zombicide Invader. That's a cool rule. The guards feel a little bit like Zombicide Invaders robots that you can control as well. So I think if you're a fan of the setting here, this is a no-brainer. You should give it a try. If you are someone who enjoys the idea of it being a little bit more puzzly, maybe a little bit harder too, then this is a good one for you. I think you should try it out. If you are a fan of the sci-fi one and like fantasy, then this is a good one too, because it kind of feels like Zombicide Invader in many ways meets the fantasy setting. I enjoy this one. I think as the core box, which is what I'm exclusively looking at here, I do wish there was a little more variety out of the box as far as the bad guys go. But I think the characters, they include only 6, and you have to always use 6 for the good guys. That's okay. I get it. It's fine. Not a big deal. You'll get to know them well, so that'll be good. But I do wish that there was a little bit more of an unexpected, surprise when you hit Abomination or Necromancer, and you always get the same one. So there you go, folks. For me, this one's going to get a 7.5 out of 10. I like it. I certainly recommend it. Again, fantasy is not my favorite. And I think this theme is a little soft. It's not incredibly specific. The theme is sort of like kind of Far East, kind of pseudo-Chinese, pseudo-Mongolian. And so it leaves a little sort of specificity to be desired, perhaps. Some of the things I'm sure if you consider the other stuff, starts to look the same a little bit. But I do enjoy mechanically what they did here. The guards as a slam dunk idea, incredibly well done. And once you grasp and understand the ramparts idea and all of those implications, then that also becomes pretty fun. So 7.5 for me, that is a seal of approval. Certainly check it out if you are a Black Plague fan and wish that they would update that game a little bit. Here you go. This is the one you want. Thank you very much for tuning in, everybody. My name is Zee Garcia. I'll see you on the next one.
Hey everybody, thanks for watching another video from the Dice Tower. Hey, you want to learn more about us, communicate with us? We have a Facebook group, we have a Discord channel, lots of different ways to get involved with the Dice Tower. You can find that in our Linktree link below. So just click that, it will take you and you can communicate with us on Facebook, join our Facebook groups. There's lots of cool things that you can find and become part of the Dice Tower. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Tom Vasel.